Tom stood on the platform, looking at the silver spaceship in front of him. The sky above was dark blue, filled with stars. He held his helmet under one arm and his bag over his shoulder. This was not his first mission, but something about this one felt different. Maybe it was the strange world they were going to, or maybe it was the person standing beside him, an alien warrior in full armor. Her name was Zira. She was tall and moved like a soldier, with no sound, no wasted motion. Her armor was smooth and silver, covering her from head to toe. Her helmet had a dark glass shield, so Tom couldn't see her face. She didn't speak much. In fact, she hadn't said a single word since they met at the base. Commander Hale came over and gave Tom a tablet. You and Zira will land near the old base on planet Virax 9, he said. That place was closed years ago after the war, but now we're picking up strange signals again. Your job is to go in, check the systems, and report anything unusual. Do not go into deep unless necessary. Tom nodded. Understood. Commander Hale looked at Zira. You know the rules. Work with him. Keep each other alive. Zira gave a short nod. Tom and Zira walked toward the ship as the door closed behind them. The engine started to hum. The ship lifted off slowly, then sped into space. Inside, Tom tried to talk to Zira. So, have you been to Virax 9 before? Zira didn't answer. Tom smiled a little. Not much of a talker. Huh? Still no answer. She only sat quietly, her helmet always facing forward. Tom sighed and leaned back in his seat. Maybe this mission was going to be quiet after all. Hours later, the ship landed on Virax 9. The planet's surface was dusty and cold. Wind blew across empty fields. In the distance stood the old base, a large, silent structure made of metal and stone. Parts of it looked broken. The lights on the outside still blinked, even after all these years. Tom and Zira stepped out of the ship. Tom pulled on his helmet and checked his scanner. The signal's coming from inside. Let's go. Zira didn't speak, but she walked beside him, her boots making soft sounds on the hard ground. They entered the base through a side door. The hallway inside was long and dark. Broken screens hung from the walls. Some doors were open. Others were locked shut. A strange hum filled the air, coming from deep within the base. Tom turned on his flashlight. Creepy place, Zira said. Nothing. She moved ahead, scanning with her own device. They walked through room after room. There were signs of an old battle blaster, marks on walls, broken machines, and old uniforms left on the floor. But there were no bodies, no signs of life, just silence. In one room, Tom found a working terminal. He tapped on the screen and pulled up a map of the base. Looks like the signal is coming from the control center. That's 3 floors down. Zira walked over and pointed to another part of the map. A small symbol blinked near the control center. What's that? Tom asked. She tapped her device and showed him a match. It was a power source, active. Tom's eyes narrowed. So something's still running down there. They continued down into the lower levels. As they moved, the lights began to flicker. Strange sounds echoed through the hall's metal creaking, soft footsteps, or whispers that didn't belong. Tom looked around. You hear that? Zira nodded once. She raised her weapon and moved ahead carefully. They reached a wide hallway with a broken ceiling. Pieces of metal had fallen across the floor. Tom stepped over them while Zira scanned the walls. Suddenly, a loud crash came from behind. Tom spun around. What was that? No answer. The hallway behind them was empty. He turned to Zira. Should we check it out? She shook her head. Instead, she pointed forward. The signal was stronger now. Whatever was waiting for them, it was ahead, not behind. They entered a large chamber. This must have been a command room once. Chairs were broken, and screens were cracked. But in the center of the room stood a tall machine. It looked old but still active. Lights blinked along its surface. Thick cables ran into the walls. Tom stared at it. That's not standard tech. Zira walked around it slowly, scanning it with care. Then she tapped her screen and showed the result, unknown origin. Tom stepped closer. Do you think this machine is sending the signal? Before Zira could answer, a loud sound came from the doorway. Both of them turned fast, weapons ready. Nothing was there, only the flickering lights. Tom whispered, "We're not alone in here." Zira slowly turned back to the machine. She raised her weapon and pointed to a control panel. Tom walked over and saw a warning message on the screen. Project Mirror. Test incomplete. Do not reboot. He read it out loud. Project Mirror. What does that mean? Zira typed a few buttons, but the machine made a sharp beep and flashed a red light. Access denied. Tom said, "Looks like it's locked." Suddenly, the light shut off. Darkness. Tom heard Zira move beside him. Then her helmet lights turned on, casting a soft glow in the room. Tom kept his voice low. "We need to get back to the surface. We can't deal with this alone." Zira nodded. But before they could leave, the doorway closed by itself. Tom ran to it and tried the controls. Locked. "We're trapped." Zira stepped beside him, quiet but ready. Her calm made Tom feel a little braver. He looked at her. "Guess it's just you and me for now." She didn't speak, but this time her helmet turned toward him slowly. She stayed that way for a long second. Then she turned back and raised her weapon. Whatever was coming next, they would face it together. Tom stood near the locked door, still trying to open it. His fingers moved fast over the control panel, but the system didn't respond. Each time he entered a command, the screen flashed red. Zira watched quietly, standing with her weapon ready. "It's no use," Tom said at last. "This panel's not working. We're locked in." Zira walked over to the wall and tapped her scanner. A small green light appeared on her screen. She pointed down a dark hallway connected to the chamber. Tom looked. Where she pointed, another exit. Zira gave a short nod. They moved together, stepping over broken wires and metal plates. The hallway was long and narrow, and their boots made soft echoes on the floor. The lights above flickered, some working, some dead, old. Signs on the walls showed faded words: storage bay, power room, labs. It was clear that this place had not been used for many years, but something still powered it. As they walked, Tom kept looking behind. He felt watched, even though no one was there. "I don't like this place," he said. Zira didn't answer, but she moved a little closer, her shoulder nearly brushing his. They turned a corner and reached a large round door. Zira held up her scanner again, and this time the screen flashed yellow. She typed the code, and the door began to open slowly. It made a deep grinding sound as it slid open, revealing a room filled with dim blue light. Inside, the room looked like a lab. Tables were covered with old tools and broken machines. Screens hung on the walls, some still glowing weakly. Tom walked to one of the screens and tapped it. It came to life and showed a video log. Zira stood beside him as the log played. A man appeared on the screen, wearing a white coat. His face looked tired. His voice was low. "This is Dr. Kell. We made a mistake. The Mirror Project was not ready. We thought it would help the war. We thought copies would follow orders, but they changed. They learned. They started thinking for themselves. We lost control." The video shook as something crashed in the background. "We tried to shut it down. Too late. The copies are here now. Some look like us. Some are worse. If anyone finds this, stay away from the core. Don't trust what you see." The screen went black. Tom stood still. "Copies?" He means the machine made living copies of people. Zira touched her wrist screen and pulled up more files. Most were locked, but one opened and showed a list of missing workers from the base, all marked as unknown fate. Tom turned to Zira. "You think any of them are still down here?" Zira nodded once, then pointed at a map on the wall. She tapped the area marked core room. Tom sighed. "So the machine is still working, and the copies are still moving around." Zira turned to the door. They had to move forward. They left the lab and followed the path deeper into the base. The halls were darker now. Pipes dripped water, and the floor was cracked in places. Twice they had to climb over fallen beams. Zira moved carefully, checking every corner. Tom followed close behind. They reached a stairwell and started down. As they reached the bottom, Tom stopped suddenly. He held up his hand. "Did you hear that?" Zira raised her weapon, From down the hall came a sound footsteps. But the steps were slow and uneven, like someone walking with one leg dragging behind. The sound grew louder, then stopped. Tom held his breath. Zira moved forward slowly and peeked around the corner. She froze. Tom joined her and looked. A figure stood in the hallway. It looked like a man in a military suit, but his skin was pale, and his eyes glowed faintly. He didn't speak. He only stared. Tom whispered, "That's not human." Suddenly, the figure charged at them. Zira pushed Tom back and raised her weapon. She fired once, hitting the creature in the chest. It fell, but got back up quickly, its movements jerky and strange. Zira fired again, aiming for the head this time. The creature dropped and didn't move again. Tom stared at the body. "Is that one of the copies?" Zira walked over and scanned. Her screen showed. Mirror copy. Damage item felt a chill. So they're still walking around. Some of them are broken, but they're still here. Zira nodded. She pointed down the hall again. They kept moving, now more alert than before. Soon they came to a locked metal door. Zira typed a code, but the panel buzzed. Tom tried his ID chip, and this time the door opened. Inside was a control room with blinking lights and a large central table. Maps of the base were displayed, and a signal showed movement on the lower level. Tom checked the screen. Something's moving in the core room. Zira pointed to another screen. It showed energy readings high. Levels. The machine was active again. Tom looked at her. "We can't stop it from here. We have to go down." Zira turned and walked toward the stairs. But before they could leave, the lights flickered again. This time, the door behind them shut on its own. A voice came from the speaker in the corner. It was soft and slow. "You should not be here." Tom looked around. Who was that? The voice came again. "The copies protect the core. They are part of it now. Leave or be changed." Zira aimed her weapon at the speaker. Tom pulled her back. "No use shooting. Whatever that was, it knows we're here." Zira nodded. Tom checked his gear. "Then we go to the core and shut it down." Zira tapped her chest twice, a quiet signal that she was ready. Together, they walked out of the control room, heading deeper into the base. They knew the real danger was still ahead. Tom and Zira moved through the narrow hallway. The lights above were broken now, and only the small lamps on their suits lit the way. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. A soft fog hung low across the floor. Every few steps, they heard quiet sounds like breathing, but not their own. Tom gripped his scanner tightly. The signal from the core was getting stronger. "We're close," he said. Zira gave a short nod and moved ahead, her steps careful and fast. Her silver armor reflected the light as she passed through the fog. They reached a large door marked Core Lab. Beside the door was a broken panel. Zira tapped it, but nothing happened. Tom stepped forward. "Let me try." He opened a small panel near the wall and connected his scanner. After typing a few commands, the door made a deep clicking sound and slid open slowly inside. The room was dark. Only a few machines still glow with red and blue lights. Cables hung from the ceiling like vines. In the center of the room stood the main machine, the one the message had warned them about. It was tall and wide, with glass panels and spinning parts at the top. A clear chamber glowed softly. Zira raised her weapon and stepped toward the machine. Tom followed, watching every corner. Suddenly, the chamber at the top lit up. Inside, something moved. Tom stepped back. "Is that a person?" Zira aimed at the chamber. Her scanner beeped. A known life form detected. The figure inside looked human, but its face was not complete. Parts of it shifted, like clay being molded. It had no eyes, only smooth skin. It stood still, but its chest moved as if it was breathing. Tom stared at it. "This is one of the early copies. It's still growing." Zira typed on a control pad nearby. A file opened on a screen. Copy number 001 still in development. Subject remains unstable. Memory storage incomplete. Tom read the words slowly. They were trying to build a person from nothing. Just then, a loud noise came from behind them. Zira turned quickly. Weapon ready. In the doorway stood another figure. It looked like a soldier, but his face was pale. and his eyes glowed faint blue. He said nothing. He only stepped forward slowly. Tom raised his weapon. Stay back. The figure did not stop. Zero fired. The shot hit the figure in the chest. But he kept walking. Another shot dropped him to the floor. More footsteps came from the hall. Tom looked at the scanner. 3 more incoming. Zero took cover near the wall. Tom joined her. They aimed their weapons at the doorway. The first figure stepped in. It looked like a woman this time, but her movements were stiff. She had no voice, only a strange sound like static. Zero shot her before she could get close. The second and third followed, but Zero and Tom fought well together. After a short fight, all 3 copies lay on the floor, not moving. Tom breathed hard. They just keep coming. Zero didn't speak. She checked her scanner and pointed at the core machine. The signal was growing stronger. The copies were being sent by the machine itself. Tom walked to the controls. We need to shut this down. Zero stood beside him and typed on the panel. A warning appeared on the screen. Core lockdown. Active. Manual shutdown required. Tom sighed. Of course, nothing is ever easy. Zero pointed to another door on the far side of the room. It had a sign above it. Control access. They moved toward the door together. Inside, they found a small room with control seats and more screens. One screen showed security camera feeds from other parts of the base. Tom stared at one screen. That's me. Zero looked to. On the screen, another Tom walked through a hallway, looking calm and focused. He looked just like the real Tom, same suit, same face, same scanner in his hand. Tom backed away from the screen. That's not me. That's a copy. Zero stepped in front of him and looked directly at him. She tapped her helmet, then pointed at him and raised her scanner. Tom stood still. You think I'm a copy? Zero didn't lower her weapon. Her scanner was silent for a moment. Then it gave a green light. Human confirmed. Zero finally lowered her arm and turned back to the screens. Tom looked down. I don't blame you. If I saw another version of you walking around, I'd wonder too. Zero didn't speak, but something in her body language changed. She was less cold now, less distant. On the main screen, a new warning flashed. Multiple mirror copies active. Numbers unknown. Tom looked at the screen, then at Zero. We have to stop the machine. If we don't, it'll keep making more copies. Zero tapped the map and pointed to a chamber below them. Main power room. To read the label. If we shut down the power, maybe we can stop it all. Zero nodded. She turned to leave, but Tom stopped her. Wait. He looked at her for a moment. Back there. When you pointed your scanner at me, were you really ready to shoot if it said I wasn't human? Zero paused, then gave a slow nod. Tom smiled a little. Thanks for checking first. She didn't smile back, but her head tilted slightly, almost like a sign of respect. They left the control room and started toward the power chamber. On the way, they passed more signs of damaged burned walls, broken glass, shattered robots. Something terrible had happened here a long time ago, and now it was starting again. Tom kept his eyes on the shadows. If that fake me shows up, promise me something. Zero looked at him. Don't shoot until you know which one is real. She gave a sharp nod and kept moving. The base around them groaned and shook. The machine was getting stronger. They were running out of time. Tom and Zero moved quickly down the hallway that led to the power chamber. Every step they took was followed by a soft echo. Pipes ran along the ceiling, and the walls were scratched, as if something with sharp claws had passed through many times. The deeper they went, the louder the bass seemed to breathe. The air was heavy and warm now. Tom checked his scanner. The power core was close, one more level below. Zero tapped her wrist and pointed to a metal ladder going down. It led to a hatch. Marked main power core. Tom nodded and started down first. Zero followed behind, her armor making soft clicks against the ladder. When they reached the bottom, Tom stepped into a large room filled with humming machines. The power core stood in the center, glowing with bright blue light. Thick cables ran from it in all directions. Control panels blinked all around. Zero walked to one of the panels and scanned it. A list of systems appeared: life support, lights, doors, and machine power. All were active. Tom stood beside her. We shut this down, and everything goes dark. Even the machine making the copies. Zero pointed to the final line mirror system. Power. Protected a lock symbol blinked beside it. Tom read it. We need 2 codes to unlock it. One from each side of the chamber. Zero tapped the map. There were the control stations across from each other. Tom nodded. I'll go to that one. You take the other. We do it together. They moved to the separate stations. As Tom reached his panel, he placed his hand on the scanner. The screen lit up and waited for a code. He called out, "Ready?" Zira gave a short signal with her hand. Tom counted, 3, 2, 1 now. They both entered the code at the same time. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the screen flashed green. The lock opened, but at that exact second, the room lights shut off. Darkness. Tom raised his scanner light. Zira stood frozen across the room. Her weapon raised. Behind her, something moved. Tom shouted, "Zira, behind you?" She spun around and fired. A shadow jumped back into the dark. Tom ran toward her. As they stood back to back, shapes began to appear round the edge of the room. One by one, the copies stepped into the light. They looked human, but something was wrong with their faces. Some smiled with empty eyes. Others had mouths, but no noses. Their bodies twitched as they walked. Tom whispered, "There's too many." Zira didn't speak. She raised both arms, ready to fight. The copies began to charge. Tom fired quickly. One copy fell, then another. Zira's aim was sharper. She moved like a trained warrior, dodging and shooting with perfect control. But more kept coming. Suddenly, a loud voice echoed through the chamber. "You cannot stop us. You are not real. Only we are real now." Tom looked around. Who said that? Then he saw him. Another Tom stepped from the shadows. Same face, same suit, same scanner in his hand. The copy. Tom smiled. She won't know which one to shoot. Zira turned and looked between them. Her eyes behind the helmet were hidden, but her body was tense. Tom raised both hands. "Zira, it's me. You know it's me." The copy stepped forward. "Don't listen to him. I'm the real one. He's the fake." Zira pointed her weapon back and forth. She didn't move. Tom spoke quickly. "Remember the room with the video logs? The one where the scientist said Project Mirror failed? Only the real me saw that with you." The copy laughed. "He saw the logs too. He was made from you. Everything you remember." "He remembers." Zira took a step back. Tom tried again. "When we saw the first copy, I said, 'We're not alone.' You turned your helmet toward me, but didn't speak. I said, 'Just you and me.' Only the real me would remember that." Zira stood still for one more second. Then she fired. The copy. Tom fell back, sparks flying from his chest. He hit the floor hard and didn't move again. Tom walked over slowly. The body twitched once, then stopped. Zira turned to him and scanned his face. The screen blinked green. "Human confirmed." Tom smiled with relief. "Thanks." Zira looked at him and tapped her chest twice, a sign of trust. But there was no time to rest. The copies were still coming. Tom pointed to the power core. "Now, shut it down." They ran to the control panels. Zira typed commands while Tom pulled the main power switch. The blue lights of the machine began to dim. One by one, the copies in the room started to fall. Some twitched, others froze in place. The air filled with the sound of machines powering down. Tom looked around. "It's working." Zira tapped the final button. The power core shut off completely. The lights in the room faded to red. Only emergency lights remained. The machine was silent. The base was still. Tom looked at Zira. "We did it." Zira stood still for a moment, then removed her helmet. For the first time, Tom saw her face. She had calm eyes and soft features. Her skin was light blue, and her hair was tied back. She didn't smile, but her eyes showed peace. Tom nodded. "You really were the strongest one here," Zira said in a quiet voice. "Now it's just you and me." Tom didn't speak. He only looked at her, feeling something change between them. They had survived the base. But the story was not over yet. The room was quiet now. The sound of machines had stopped. The blue light from the power core was gone. Only the soft red glow from emergency lights remained. Broken wires hung from the ceiling, and the floor was scattered with the fallen bodies of the mirror copies. Tom stood beside Zira, looking around carefully. His hands were still tight on his weapon, but nothing moved anymore. It was finally calm. Zira's helmet was off. Her face was uncovered. For the first time since the mission began, she had lowered her guard. Her skin had a soft glow, and her eyes looked calm but focused. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. "We stopped the core, but the machine is not destroyed." Tom nodded. "We cut the power, but it's still there. It can be started again." They both knew what had to be done. The machine had to be fully shut down permanently. Tom looked at his scanner. "The core control is below this level. One more floor down." Zira picked up her helmet and placed it under her arm. She didn't put it back on. She walked beside Tom as they headed toward a small door. In the corner of the room, the hallway behind the door was tight and dark. The walls were warm, as if the heat from the machine was still rising through them. Water dripped from broken pipes. A thin layer of mist covered the ground. Tom walked first. Holding a light, Zira followed, silent and alert. After a few minutes, they reached a wide chamber. At the center was the true heart of the Mirror Project. It was much larger than Tom expected. Long glass tubes stretched from floor to ceiling. Inside each one, a half-formed body floated. Some looked human, others didn't. Some were still growing, while others had stopped completely. Tom stepped back. "This is where they were made." Zira walked over to one of the tubes. The figure inside looked like a young man, but his eyes were closed. He didn't move. She scanned the tube. Status, incomplete copies, and pointed at a console. "Can we destroy all of this from here?" Zira checked the screen. The system showed that the power was off, but backup energy was still keeping the tubes alive. She typed commands to begin full shutdown. The screen flashed a warning. Final shutdown requires voice command from authorized user. Tom frowned. "What does that mean?" Suddenly, a voice came from behind them. "It means me." They turned. Quickly, a figure stood near the entrance. He looked like a soldier, tall and calm, with clear eyes and a straight back. But Tom knew right away this was not a man. It was a perfect mirror copy. The copy spoke. "I was the first Mirror One. The others were not strong, but I was built to last. I learned from all of you." Tom raised his weapon, stepped back. Mirror One smiled. "You shut off the power. You think that will stop us? I don't need the machine anymore. I can lead what's left." Zira stepped forward, her voice cold and strong. "You are not real." Mirror One tilted his head. "But I feel real. I think. I remember." "What makes you more real than me?" Tom didn't answer. He and Zira spread out, slowly moving around the chamber. Mirror One kept his eyes on both of them. "You humans always fear what you create. You fear what might become better than you." Tom replied, "You're not better. You're just an echo." The copy's smile faded. An echo can still destroy. He rushed forward. Tom fired first. The shot hit Mirror One in the shoulder, but he didn't stop. Zira moved fast, kicking him back and aiming her blaster at his chest. They fought as the glass tubes around them began to crack from the noise. The echo of each hit rang through the room. Tom circled behind, firing again. Zira moved with sharp, fast steps, blocking Mirror One's attacks with her arms and armor. Mirror One grabbed a metal bar and swung it at Tom. It hit his side and knocked him down. Zira struck hard, pushing Mirror One away. She helped Tom up. Quickly, "You all right?" she asked. Tom nodded, breathing hard. "We end this now." Zira ran to the control console. She typed fast. The screen showed one last option. "Overload reactor. Confirm." Tom stood beside her. "Do it. We'll escape before it blows." Zira hit confirm. The tubes around the room began to hiss. The air filled with a strange whirring sound. Sparks flew from the machines. Mirror One screamed, "You don't know what you're doing. You're ending something that could have saved your kind." Tom replied, "We don't need copies. We need each other." He grabbed Zira's hand. "Let's go." They ran toward the exit as the room behind them began to shake. Pipes burst. Flames shot from the floor. The glass tubes exploded one by one, spilling strange blue fluid across the floor. They climbed back up the ladder, rushing through the hallways they had entered earlier. The ground shook beneath them. The alarms blared through the base. Red lights blinked in every hallway. Zira and Tom reached the surface door. Tom tapped the code, but it didn't open. It stuck. Zira stepped forward and used her full strength to pull the door open. Together, they forced it just wide enough to slip through. Outside, the sky was dark, but the stars were bright. The base behind them lit up with a soft blue flash. Then silence. Tom looked back. The machine was gone. Zira stood beside him, her armor marked with dust and burns. She still held her helmet in one hand, her face calm but tired. Tom looked at her. "It's over," Zira replied. "Yes, the real ones are still standing." They both stood in silence for a while, watching the smoke rise into the sky. Smoke rose behind them as Tom and Zira stood at the edge of the ruined base. The soft blue light from the blast still glowed faintly inside the cracks of the old walls. The machine was gone, the core destroyed, and the mirror copies had stopped. The sky above was dark but peaceful. Stars twinkled across the wide sky, and a cold breeze passed over the empty field. Tom took off his helmet and took a deep breath. The air was dry and thin but fresh. He turned to Zira, who was still holding her helmet in one hand. Her face was marked with dust, but her eyes were sharp and focused. The soft light from the stars made her features clearer now. She looked strong and calm. Tom broke the silence. "That was close," Zira nodded. "Too close." They stood for a moment, listening to the wind and the distant hum of broken machines. The danger was gone, but they were still far from safe. Tom checked his scanner. "Our ship is still parked on the hill. No damage. We can leave any time." Zira didn't move. She looked back at the base, her eyes fixed on the dark structure. Tom looked too. "You think there's more down there?" Zira shook her head. "No, the machine is gone. The power is dead, but something still feels unfinished." Tom looked at her, waiting for more. Zira didn't speak, but after a few seconds, she placed her helmet on the ground. Then she slowly reached behind her armor and unlocked the side straps. The silver chest plate came loose and dropped with a soft thud on the dirt. She removed the rest of her armor, piece by piece, and placed it beside her. Her movements were slow and steady. When she was done, she stood in a simple dark suit, light and flexible. Her body was lean and strong, with quiet grace in every movement. Tom watched silently. Zira turned to him. "No more protection. No more distance. Now it's just you and me." Tom looked at her for a moment. "Why now?" Zira looked up at the stars. "I wore the armor to hide. From danger. From others. From myself. But you never gave up on me. You stayed." Tom stepped closer. "We were partners. That's what partners do." Zira's eyes met his. "No, you did more. You trusted me even when you had no reason to. Even when I pointed a weapon at you." Tom gave a small smile. "You also saved my life, twice." She gave a nod. "Because I believe in you." They stood close now, side by side, without armor, without masks. The wind moved softly around them. Tom looked back at the base. This place, it tried to copy everything, thoughts, faces, voices. But it couldn't copy this. Zira tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Tom pointed to the space between them. "This feeling, this trust, it's real. You can't build it. You earn it." Zira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I was trained to follow orders, not to feel. But now I feel something. Something strong." Tom nodded. "So do I." The silence returned, but it was not empty. It was full of understanding. After a few minutes, Tom looked at the scanner again. "We should head back to the ship. We can send a report to command. Let them know the base is finished." Zira picked up her armor and helmet, but she didn't wear them again. She carried them under one arm. They walked together across the dry ground. The night was cold, but the walk felt calm. As they climbed the hill, the ship came into view. It stood just as they left it, silver and smooth, with its ramp down and lights on. Tom tapped a button on his wrist, and the ship's door opened wider. Before stepping inside, Zira turned to look back at the base one last time. The blue smoke had faded. The structure looked old and broken, almost like ruins. She said, "It's over now." Tom stood beside her, "For now. But if anything else rises from the dark, we'll be ready." Zira gave a short nod. Together, they entered the ship. The doors closed behind them with a quiet hiss. Inside, the control lights blinked softly. Tom moved to the front seat and checked the systems. Everything was working fine. Zira sat in the seat beside him, still carrying her armor. Tom looked at her. "You want to keep it?" Zira placed the armor beside her. "Not to wear, just to remember who I was, and who I don't have to be anymore." Tom smiled. "That's fair." He started the ship. The engines hummed softly, then lifted them off the ground. The planet slowly fell away below them. As the stars filled the windows, Tom looked ahead. "Where do you want to go next?" Zira replied, "Somewhere quiet, somewhere we can rest." Tom nodded. "I know just the place." They didn't need to say more. Together, they flew into space, away from the base, away from the danger. The mirror project was finished, but something better had taken its place. Real connection, real trust, and something that could never be copied. The ship moved gently through space. Stars sparkled all around like tiny lights in a sea of black. Inside the ship, the hum of the engines was soft and steady. Tom sat in the pilot's chair, eyes on the control screen. Beside him, Zira leaned back, quiet and calm. They had left the ruined base far behind. The mission was complete. The machine was destroyed. The copies had stopped. But more than that, something had changed between them. Zira looked out the window. "It feels strange." Tom glanced at her. "What does?" She took a slow breath. "Peace, after everything we've seen. After the fights, the running, the doubt." Tom nodded. "We earned this." Zira smiled gently. "Yes, we did." They had sent a message to command before leaving the planet. A short report, clear and simple. Base destroyed. Threat ended. Returning for new orders. But they both knew something else had started, something bigger than any report could explain. Tom set the ship on autopilot. He stood and stretched. "Want to check the back?" "We haven't eaten anything since yesterday." Zira followed him to the small kitchen space. It was simple but had everything they needed. Tom handed her a pack of dried food and poured water into 2 small metal cups. They sat across from each other at the table. Zira looked around. "This ship is small, but I like it. It's quiet." Tom smiled. "I built it myself. Took me 2 years." Zira raised her eyebrows. "Really?" "Yeah. Salvage parts, old tools, a lot of mistakes." Zira looked at the walls again, now with more respect. "It's good. It held strong." Tom chuckled. "That's what I was going for." They ate in silence for a while. Not an awkward silence, but a peaceful one. When the meal was done, Zira leaned back and looked at Tom. "I used to think strength meant not feeling, not trusting, but I was wrong." Tom listened quietly. Zira continued, "You showed me another way, not through words, but by standing beside me, even when I didn't ask." Tom looked down for a second. Then he said, "You were always strong. I just helped you see it." Zira's eyes softened. "Thank you." They stood and walked back to the main room. Tom sat at the pilot's seat. Again, he tapped a few buttons. "We're heading to a quiet moon called Eris," he said. "There's a station there. We can rest, get repairs, then decide what to do next." Zira looked at the screen. "Sounds good." A long pause followed. Zira then said, "You know, I never had a real home. I lived from ship to ship, mission to mission. No time to stop. No reason to stay." Tom turned to her. "Do you want one?" Zira met his eyes. "Maybe, if the right person is there." He didn't say anything right away, but then he spoke, quietly. "I've traveled alone for years. Thought I liked it, but now I'm not so sure." Zira nodded. "Maybe we're both ready for something new." Outside, the stars drifted past the windows. The ship continued moving toward the moon. Suddenly, a light blinked on the screen, a small signal. Tom leaned forward. A ship nearby. Sending a message. He opened the channel. A voice came through. "This is the trade ship Noma. We need help. Engines down. Floating near grid 7. Tom checked the map. "That's close." He looked at Zira. "What do you think?" Zira stood. "Let's go." Tom smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." He changed course. And within minutes, they saw the other ship. It was an older model, shaking slightly in space. Tom opened the comm. "This is Tom, pilot of Wayfarer. We're here to assist." The reply came fast. "Thank you. Systems are failing. Can't move. Low power." Zira grabbed a toolkit. "I'll take the repair line. You keep the ship steady." Tom nodded. "Be careful." Zira suited up and stepped into the small docking bay. She attached the safety line and opened the outer door. The vacuum of space greeted her. Silent and cold, she pushed forward, gliding toward the other ship with skill. Tom watched her on the screen. She moved fast, focused, strong. Within 10 minutes, Zira reached the other ship. She connected cables, ran tests, and fixed the power relay. The damaged ship's lights blinked on. Engines came to life. The trade ship sent another message. "We're back online. You saved us. Thank you." Zira gave a short reply. "Stay safe." She returned to their ship and removed her helmet. Tom helped her out of the suit. "You were amazing," he said. Zira smiled. "I had a good teacher." They both sat down again. Tom looked at the stars ahead. "So, we rest for a while, then." "What?" Zira leaned back. "We fly again. Not for war. Not for orders. But for people. Like them. People who need help." Tom nodded. "We could make a good team. We already are." Their ship moved forward, quiet and steady, leaving behind the shadows of war and stepping into something new. Not just as fighters, but as partners. As friends, and maybe something more. The stars did not speak, but they watched, and the ship kept flying.